France. Land of cheese, wine, and that one time they got so angry they decided to fight literally everyone. But before we get to the short guy with the funny hat conquering the world, we have to talk about the absolute dumpster fire that started it all, the French Revolution. It's the late 1700s. King Louis XVI is in charge. He's a nice guy, terrible with money. Like, buys a golden yacht while his credit card is declined terrible. France is broke because they spent all their cash helping the Americans beat the British. The people of France are hungry. The bread prices are skyrocketing. And the Queen, Marie Antoinette? She probably didn't actually say that, but it sounds dramatic, so let's roll with it. The point is, the peasants are starving and the nobility is partying. So, the people do what any rational group of starving citizens would do. They storm the Bastille. This kicks off the revolution. It starts with, hey, let's have a constitution, and quickly devolves into, hey, let's chop everyone's head off. This is the reign of terror. Led by this guy, Robespierre. It got so bad that eventually France looked at Robespierre and said, you know what, you're kinda killing the vibe. And then they chopped his head off too. Irony at its finest. So now France is a republic, but it's a republic surrounded by enemies. All the other kings in Europe, Austria, Prussia, Britain, Russia, are looking at France like, France is being attacked from all sides. The economy is trash. The government, the directory, is incompetent. They need a miracle. They need a hero. They need a socially awkward artillery nerd from the island of Corsica. Napoleon Bonaparte. Born in Corsica, which had just become French like 5 minutes before he was born. He spoke French with a funny accent. He was teased at school. He wasn't even technically short for the time. He was average height, but
fake news.
British propaganda is a heck of a drug. But what he lacked in height, social skills, he made up for in being really good at math and blowing things up. 1793. The Siege of Toulon. A vital French port has been taken by the British. The French commanders are idiots. Captain Napoleon walks in. He saves the day. Boom. Promotion. Brigadier General at age 24. What were you doing at 24? Probably watching YouTube videos about Napoleon? No judgment. But saving Toulon was just the warm-up. In 1795, a royalist mob tries to overthrow the government in Paris. Napoleon is called in. He doesn't negotiate. He uses something called a whiff of grapeshot. He clears the streets with cannons. Brutal? Yes. Effective? Absolutely. He saves the government again. And as a reward, they give him the command of the French army in Italy. It was a suicide mission. The army was ragged, starving, and fighting the mighty Austrian Empire. But Napoleon gives them a speech. And then, he does the impossible. He moves faster than anyone thought possible. He splits the Austrian armies. He strikes them where they are weak. He wins battle after battle. Lodi, Arcole, Rivoli. He's rewriting the rulebook of war. While other generals are playing chess, Napoleon is playing 4D speed chess with cheat codes. He forces Austria to surrender. He returns to Paris not just as a general, but as a superstar. But superstars make politicians nervous. The directory, the government thinks, this guy is too popular. We need to send him far away so he doesn't take our jobs. Hey Napoleon, they said, why don't you go conquer Egypt? Disrupt British trade routes to India? See the pyramids? Sounds cool. I'll bring scientists. So, off to Egypt he goes. 1798. He beats the Mamluks at the Battle of the Pyramids. On land, he's winning.
Wait,
but at sea,
where did Napoleon
the British
go?
Admiral Horatio Nelson, France's nightmare fuel, finds the French fleet docked at the Nile. Napoleon is trapped in Egypt. No ships. No way home. And back in France, things are falling apart again. Austria and Russia have rejoined the chat and are beating France. The people are unhappy. Napoleon realizes, if I stay here, I'm forgotten. If I go back now, I can save France, again. So, he literally abandons his army in Egypt, kind of a jerk move honestly, and sneaks back to France. He arrives in Paris. The government is weak. The people want a leader. It's time for the ultimate power move. The coup of 18 Brumaire. It was actually a lot messier, and he almost got beaten up by politicians, but his brother Lucien saved him. Long story short, the government is dissolved. Napoleon is named first consul. He is 30 years old. He is the dictator of France. The revolution is technically over, but the wars? Oh, the wars are just getting started. Europe thinks France is tired. Europe thinks this little Corsican upstart will fail. Europe is about to find out. Napoleon is now the first consul, basically the boss, but France is still a mess. The roads are broken, the treasury is empty, and the Austrians are still complaining. Napoleon decides he needs to kick the Austrians out of Italy. Again. But there's a problem. The Alps. A giant wall of ice and rock that says you shall not pass. His generals say it's impossible. Napoleon says, impossible is a word to be found only in the dictionary of fools, which is a cool quote, until you realize you're freezing to death on a donkey. You've seen this painting, right? Majestic. Powerful. Horse on its hind legs. Despite the mule, he makes it across. He surprises the Austrians at the Battle of Marengo, 1800. Actually, he almost lost. Like, really bad. He was overconfident. But then his buddy General Desaix showed up at the last second. Napoleon wins. Austria cries. Peace is signed. For the first time in 10 years, Europe is at peace. Napoleon uses this time to do something very boring but very important. Paperwork. He creates the Napoleonic Code. Before this, France had like 400 different sets of laws. In the north, you could get arrested for wearing a blue hat. In the south, wearing a blue hat was mandatory. It was chaos. Napoleon fixed it. One law for everyone. Well, mostly men. Women. Let's just say it wasn't a great time to be a woman. Sorry, ladies. He sells a massive chunk of land to the Americans to make some quick cash. Because peace. Peace was never an option. The British are getting nervous. They see Napoleon rebuilding France and think, this guy is getting too powerful. So, in 1803, Britain declares war. Again, Napoleon realizes that being first consul isn't enough. Monarchs don't respect consuls. They respect kings. Or better yet, emperors. It's coronation day. The Pope is there. The plan is for the Pope to place the crown on Napoleon's head, symbolizing that God gives him power. But Napoleon? Napoleon doesn't wait for God. He puts the crown on his own head. The ultimate power move. I didn't succeed because of God. I succeeded because of me. Now he is Emperor Napoleon I. And he has a plan to invade Britain. He gathers a massive army at the coast. The Army of the Ocean. But there is one problem. The Royal Navy. It's the 1800s. The British Navy is like a shark in a goldfish pond. October 1805. Battle of Trafalgar. The French and Spanish fleets try to break out. They meet Horatio Nelson. Again, Nelson uses a crazy strategy. Instead of lining up parallel, he drives straight into the enemy formation. It's chaotic. It's messy. It's a slaughter. The French fleet is destroyed. Napoleon's dream of invading England sinks to the bottom of the ocean. But Nelson gets shot by a sniper. So, Britain rules the waves. Napoleon is furious. He can't invade England, so he looks east. Russia and Austria have joined Britain to form the Third Coalition. They are marching towards France with massive armies. Most people would panic. Most people would defend their borders. Napoleon, he looks at his army, the Grande Army, and says, "Pack your bags, boys. We're going on a road trip." He moves so fast the Austrians don't even know he's there. At the Battle of Ulm, he literally surrounds the Austrian army before they even finish their breakfast. General Mack surrenders 60,000 men without a major fight. It was embarrassing. But the main boss fight is still coming. The Russians are here. The rest of the Austrians are here. And they are meeting at a place called Austerlitz. The emperor is outnumbered. He is deep in enemy territory. The world thinks this is the end of Napoleon. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Welcome to Austerlitz, the battle of the three emperors. Napoleon, French, versus Francis II, Austria, and Alexander I, Russia. The Allies have more men. They have the high ground, the Pratzen Heights. They are confident. Napoleon pulls off the greatest prank in military history. He intentionally abandons the high ground. He makes his right flank look super weak, like a kick me sign taped to his army's back. He wants the Allies to attack there. And because Alexander is young and eager for glory, he falls for it. As soon as the Allies leave the high ground, the fog clears. And standing there, hidden in the valley, is the main French force. Napoleon, surprise, the French smash into the center of the Allied line. They split the enemy army in two. It's total chaos. The Allies panic. They try to run across frozen lakes. Napoleon orders his cannons to fire, not at the men, but at the ice. It is a total victory. The masterpiece. Austria surrenders immediately. Francis II, okay, I quit. Russia runs back home. Alexander, I think I left the stove on in Moscow. Bye. Napoleon is so powerful now that he looks at the Holy Roman Empire, which had existed for 1,000 years, and says, delete. But there is one kid in the corner who hasn't been beaten up yet. Prussia. Prussia is famous for its army. They think they are the Spartans of Europe. While Napoleon was fighting everyone else, Prussia stayed neutral. But now, when Napoleon is at his absolute strongest, Prussia decides, it's my turn. This was a mistake. A big one. 1806. Napoleon invades Prussia. It wasn't even close. He moves so fast the Prussians are still reading the instruction manual. At the Battle of Jena, Napoleon crushes the Prussian army. But the funnier part happens a few miles away at Austerlitz. Marshal Davout, the Iron Marshal, runs into the entire main Prussian army. Davout destroys them. Prussia collapses in weeks. Napoleon marches into Berlin. He visits the tomb of Frederick the Great. So, Austria is down. Prussia is down. Russia is still lurking. Napoleon chases the Russians into Poland. It's winter. It's muddy. It's miserable. Battle of Eylau, a draw. Basically a snowball fight with cannons. Then, Battle of Friedland. Napoleon wins big. Finally, Tsar Alexander I says, okay, let's talk. But they can't meet on French soil, and they can't meet on Russian soil. So they meet on a raft, in the middle of a river. This is the Peace of Tilsit. History's weirdest bromance. Napoleon and Alexander bond immediately. They talk for hours. They hate on the British together. Napoleon, don't you hate the British? Alexander, I hate them so much. Napoleon, did we just become best friends? Alexander, yup. They divide Europe between them. Napoleon is the master of the West. Alexander is the master of the East. Napoleon is at the peak of his power. He has defeated 3 coalitions. He has rewritten the map. He is married to the revolution, but dating royalty. But there is still one problem. Great Britain. Visual, UK sitting on its island, sipping tea aggressively. UK, you can't touch us. We have boats. Napoleon knows he can't invade them, so he decides to starve them. He introduces the continental system. The idea was to bankrupt Britain. The reality? Everyone loves British stuff. Europeans started smuggling. Even Napoleon's own army had to smuggle British coats because they were warmer. The economy started to suffer. People started to get annoyed. And there was one country that looked at the continental system and said, nah, we're good. Portugal. Portugal was Britain's oldest ally. They refused to close their ports. Napoleon was furious. Nobody says no to me. So he decides to invade Portugal. To get there, he has to go through Spain. It will be easy, he thought. Just a quick walk through Spain? He was wrong. So wrong. He is about to commit his first major blunder. And it involves a lot of angry Spanish farmers with knives. So Napoleon wants to conquer Portugal. He marches through Spain. And while he's there, he thinks, the King of Spain is kind of useless. Why don't I just fire him and hire my brother? This was a terrible HR decision. The Spanish people didn't want a French king. They revolted. But they didn't fight like regular armies. They hid in the hills. They ambushed supply lines. They invented a new word, guerrilla, little war. It was a nightmare. Napoleon called it his Spanish Ulcer. It bled France dry of money and men. And then, the British showed up. Led by Arthur Wellesley, the future Duke of Wellington. He's the anti-Napoleon. Defensive, calm, and British. While thousands of French soldiers were dying in Spain, Napoleon had personal problems. He needed an heir, a baby Napoleon, but his wife, Josephine, the love of his life, couldn't have more children. He divorces her. It breaks his heart, but he marries Marie-Louise, the Archduchess of Austria. Yes, the daughter of the guy he beat in war like 4 times. It was awkward. They have a son, the King of Rome. Dynasty secured. But remember his BFF in Russia? Tsar Alexander? Alexander is tired of the continental system. The Russian economy is tanking because they can't sell timber to Britain. So, Alexander opens the ports. Napoleon feels betrayed. You were my brother, Anakin. Not an actual quote, but close enough. He decides he has to punish Russia. He gathers the largest army Europe has ever seen, the Grande Armée. 600,000 men. French, Germans, Poles, Italians. It's a monster. They would not be home by Christmas. The plan is simple. Catch the Russian army, smash them, force a surrender. But the Russian generals, Barclay de Tolly and Kutuzov, have a different plan. Run away. And as they run, they burn everything. Crops, bridges, houses. This is scorched earth. The French army is marching into a wasteland. No food, no shelter. Horses start dying. Disease spreads. By the time they reach Borodino, near Moscow, Napoleon has already lost thousands of men without fighting a major battle. Finally, the Russians turn to fight. The Battle of Borodino. It wasn't a tactical masterpiece. It was a meat grinder. Napoleon, usually energetic, sits on a chair, sick with a fever, just ordering direct assaults. It's the deadliest day of the Napoleonic Wars. The French win because the Russians retreat again. The road to Moscow is open. Napoleon enters Moscow. He expects the Tsar to be there with the keys to the city. The city is deserted. And then, it starts to smell like smoke. The Russians set their own holy city on fire rather than let Napoleon have it. Napoleon waits. He sits in the ashes of Moscow for a month, waiting for a peace letter from Alexander. He realizes too late. Winter is coming. October. The first snowflakes fall. Napoleon orders the retreat. And this is where the horror begins. The Russian winter is brutal. The French soldiers are in summer uniforms. They have no food. They are freezing to death while walking. And then, the Cossacks arrive. Russian cavalry on ponies who are used to the cold. They attack the flanks, day and night. The crossing of the Berezina River. It's a disaster. Bridges breaking, people falling into icy water. Of the 600,000 men who entered Russia, only about 40,000 made it out in fighting shape. Napoleon hears news of a coup in Paris. He realizes he has to leave his army behind again to save his throne. He rushes back to Paris on a sled. Napoleon, don't worry guys, I'll go get help. Or, just go home. Good luck. He arrives in Paris, warms his hands by the fire, and says, the emperor has never been healthier. Meanwhile, the frozen skeletons of his grand army are buried under the Russian snow. And Europe? Europe smells blood. Napoleon returns to France. He scrapes together a new army. But these aren't the veterans of Austerlitz. These are teenagers and old men. Recruit, sir. I am 16 and I have never held a gun.
Sir,
Napoleon,
Private Pipe.
you're perfect.
It's upside down,
Get in
recruit.
line. The Allies, Russia, Prussia, Austria, Sweden, and Britain, form the Sixth Coalition. Basically, the We Hate Napoleon fan club is back and bigger than ever. They meet at the Battle of Leipzig, 1813. Also known as the Battle of Nations. It's Napoleon versus everybody. He fights bravely, but then his allies, the Saxons, switch sides in the middle of the battle. Visual, Saxon soldiers turning their guns around.
Well,
Napoleon,
I
hey,
thought you might
wrong
be
way.
hungry.
Saxon
They
general,
are
sorry.
quite large.
They have better cookies. Napoleon is defeated. He retreats to Paris. The Allies capture the city. His marshals, his oldest friends, refuse to fight. Marshal Ney, give it up, boss. It's over. Napoleon sighs, fine. I rage quit. April 1814. Napoleon abdicates. He tries to drink poison to end it all, but the poison is old and just gives him a really bad stomachache. Napoleon, vomiting, even my suicide is a failure. The Allies decide to punish him. But they don't kill him. They send him to Elba, a tiny pleasant island off the coast of Italy. They let him keep the title of emperor and give him a small guard. He stays there for 10 months. He fixes the roads. He reforms the garbage collection. But he is bored. He is a shark in a fishbowl. Meanwhile, in France, the Allies put the old king's brother on the throne, King Louis XVIII. The French people look at the boring, fat king and then they remember the glorious, exciting emperor. They start to miss the toxic relationship. Napoleon hears this, and he decides, round two, this is the 100 days. The most insane comeback tour in history. King Louis sends the 5th Regiment to arrest him. They meet on a road near Grenoble. Napoleon walks out alone. No weapons, just his iconic gray coat. He opens his coat. Napoleon, soldiers of the 5th. If there is one among you who wants to kill his emperor, here I am. It snowballs. Armies sent to stop him join him. Louis XVIII runs away to Belgium, leaving his dinner still on the table. Napoleon is back in Paris. The Allies are meeting in Vienna to celebrate peace when a messenger bursts in. They declare Napoleon an outlaw, not France. Napoleon personally. They gather their armies in Belgium. Napoleon knows he has to strike first before they unite. He marches north to a muddy field near a town called Waterloo. On one side, the Duke of Wellington, British, Dutch, and German troops. He likes defensive battles. He parks his army on a ridge. Wellington, I like hills. Hills are nice. On the other side, Napoleon. He is sick, hemorrhoids allegedly. He is tired, and the mud makes it hard to move his cannons. He waits for the ground to dry. This delay costs him everything. The battle begins. The French pound the British lines, but the British hold. The French cavalry charges, but the British form squares. It's a stalemate. But then, on the horizon, a cloud of dust. Napoleon hopes it's his marshal, Grouchy. Napoleon, come on, Grouchy. Narrator, it was not Grouchy. The Prussians arrive to smash Napoleon's flank. Desperate, Napoleon sends in his elite, the Imperial Guard. The best soldiers in the world? They have never retreated. They march up the hill. They are met with a storm of musket fire. And then, the unthinkable happens. Panic. Chaos. The French army collapses. Napoleon tries to die in battle, but his men drag him away. It's over. For real this time. Napoleon surrenders to the British. He hopes to live in London as a gentleman. Napoleon, I'd like a nice cottage in the countryside, please. British, LOL. No. They aren't taking chances with Elba again. They send him to St. Helena, a volcanic rock in the middle of the South Atlantic, 1,000 miles from nowhere. He spends his last 6 years there, arguing with the British governor about his wine allowance and writing his memoirs to make sure history remembers him as the hero. He dies in 1821, probably stomach cancer, maybe arsenic poisoning, probably just boredom. So was he a hero? He spread the ideas of the revolution, meritocracy, and the law code that half the world still uses today. Was he a tyrant? He caused millions of deaths, reinstated slavery in the colonies, and had an ego the size of Jupiter. The answer is, he was Napoleon. And history has never seen anyone quite like him. But hey, at least he was an average height for his time. Oh wait, yes he was.